Welcome to Gooseberry Science and Education videos. I'm hanging out with our little orange gooseberry character today, and we are embarking on an explainer about a truly fascinating corner of Europe. We're talking about Belgium and Luxembourg. You know, this is a region that literally punches way above its weight when it comes to history, art, and just sheer cultural vibrancy. We're going to unpack this rich cultural tapestry and figure out exactly what gives this area such a distinct, unforgettable flavor.
Okay, let's dive into this. What do the Smurfs, Trappist monks, and a 315-foot slightly crooked medieval spire all have in common? I mean, on the surface, absolutely nothing, right? But culturally and geographically, there's a connection. They all stem from the exact same dynamic, eccentric, and deeply historical region.
To really understand this unique identity, we've set up a bit of a tasting menu for today's explainer. We're going to cover four main themes. First, majestic squares and belfries. Second, a surprising legacy of comic art. Third, the taste of Belgium. And finally, endearing quirks and folklore.
All right, Section 1, majestic squares and belfries. If you want to understand the true historical backbone of this region, you absolutely have to look at its stunning civic architecture.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we're talking about. Notice that incredibly delicate spire soaring up into the night sky? That was built by Jan van Ruysbroek all the way back in 1449. It stands 315 feet high, and here's a kind of funny fact. It's actually a little crooked. But this absolute masterpiece still functions as a civic building today. It is, without a doubt, the architectural crown jewel of the square.
Now, alongside these grand town halls, you have the belfries. These were these towering, monumental symbols of civic pride. Basically, think of them as the medieval equivalent of a citywide alarm system and a highly secure bank vault, all rolled into one massive building. They were built with these winding spiral staircases leading up to strong rooms. That's where the city's most important charters and documents were kept securely under lock and key. And then, if you climbed even higher, you'd hit the bell lofts and lookout positions. Because they are so historically significant, Belgium's belfries are actually recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites today.
Moving on to Section 2, a legacy of comic art. So we're pivoting now from ancient stone architecture to modern ink.
You see, despite its relatively small geographic size, this region is an absolute titan when it comes to comic art. Seriously, it's a global pop culture hub. Belgium gave us some of the most beloved, instantly recognizable comic legends of the 20th century. I mean, we're talking about icons like the reporter Tintin and his faithful dog Snowy.
But there is another creation you might be even more familiar with. We're talking about the famous illustrator known as Peyo, hard at work in what would become the vibrant birthplace of the legendary Smurfs.
Now, what's really interesting about this line is the timeline of how the Smurfs actually came to be. It's fascinating. Back in 1952, Peyo debuted this poetic medieval series called Johan et Pierre Louis. It wasn't until 1958 that the Smurfs were introduced. And get this, they were just tiny blue side characters. No way were they the main event. But their humorous little quirks completely eclipsed the main characters. So Peyo leaned into it, creating a dedicated strip that was actually infused with some really clever social commentary. Fast forward to the mid-1980s, and the Smurfs escalated into a massive global craze. We're talking cartoons, hit music records, and literally endless merchandise. Okay, on to Section 3, the taste of Belgium. This is where our explainer takes a sensory turn. We're going to explore the rich, world-class culinary exports that this region has spent centuries perfecting.
Let's look at their world-renowned brewing traditions. On the one hand, we have blanche beers. These are your white wheat beers. They're known for that cloudy sediment, which gives them a sour, crisp, and super refreshing profile. They usually sit around 5% alcohol. So basically, the perfect drink for a warm summer day, right? Often served with a slice of lemon. Now contrast that with the Trappist beers. These carry some serious, solemn historical weight. They have incredibly strict monastic origins, they carry an authentic Trappist mark of approval, and generally, they offer a much richer, heavier, and just way more complex drinking experience.
So the crucial point is, whether you're enjoying a complex monk-brewed ale or treating yourself to those rich, globally celebrated Belgian chocolates, you are tasting a deeply rooted cultural dedication to craftsmanship. The incredible quality and variety of the region's top culinary exports is simply unmatched.
And finally, Section 4, endearing quirks and folklore. Because beyond the grand architecture and the fine dining, there is a wonderfully whimsical soul to the people here. It's perfectly expressed through their local legends and their really unique sense of humor.
Take the mannequin piss, for example.
The charm of this famous little urinating voice statue completely stems from the wild micro-narratives and fables surrounding it. Like, one legend claims he was a duke's son who was caught peeing against a tree during a battle, so the statue was cast to commemorate his military courage. I mean, what a way to be remembered, right? Another theory suggests he was just inspired by the god Cupid. And the little guy is a survivor, too. He's endured multiple thefts, including a pretty violent break-in back in 1965 where he was snapped in two. The missing body was actually found a whole year later, just dumped in a canal.
And the quirkiness doesn't stop there. Over 800. That is the number of outfits in this tiny statue's massive, ever-growing wardrobe. It's an ongoing tradition of international gifts that dates all the way back to 1698, when the governor of the Netherlands gave him a little blue woolen coat. Today, visiting heads of state regularly donate miniature versions of their national costumes to add to the whole shebang.
Let's move to Antwerp and see how this builds. This whimsical energy definitely extends into other cities. Here we have the towering bronze statue of Lange Whopper. According to local folklore, Lange Whopper was this jovial giant and, honestly, a bit of a rogue who could just grow taller at will. He famously used his shape-shifting abilities to play alarming, elaborate tricks on local drinkers who are stumbling home late at night.
Now contrast all of that whimsy, the giant pranksters and the little statues with massive wardrobes, with this incredibly solemn historical assessment. Of all the Gauls, the Belgians are the bravest. That quote comes straight from Julius Caesar himself. He wrote that after facing some incredibly fierce, crushing resistance from the local tribes during the Roman conquests.
It leaves us with a truly fascinating paradox to ponder. How does a region rooted in such solemn, brave, and heavy medieval history thrive today as a culture that so openly celebrates urinating statues, tiny blue smurfs, and cloudy beer? That incredible duality, that is the true magic of Belgium and Luxembourg. I really hope this explainer helped you grasp the vibrant tapestry of this region, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring the history on your own. Thanks for hanging out with us, and please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content.